The arrival of the Storm Shadow cruise missile has rapidly boosted Ukraine's warfaring abilities. Defense Minister Oleksei Reznikov even attested the Storm Shadow had a 100% efficiency rate, saying every target was also a hit. On June 12th, Russian Major General Sergei Garyachev was apparently killed by a Storm Shadow strike in Zaporizhzhia Oblast in light of the ongoing counter-offensive. That's not enough. With the stated goal being the recapturing and reintegration of all of its territories, Ukraine is continuing to look to the West to provide it with more long-range missile systems to defend its territories. Welcome to Talking Tactics, where this week it's all about the Storm Shadow and other long-range missile systems and why Ukraine is so desperately seeking them. The Franco-British, attention full name, Storm Shadow or SCALP EG is manufactured by the defense company MBDA, a specialist in guided weapons. Although the Storm Shadow is often described as a long-range missile, the term is a little misleading. Storm Shadows don't have a range of thousands of kilometers, but can fly a maximum of about 600. According to the manufacturer, the export version, which Ukraine has received, has been reduced to a little over 250 km. Strategic cruise missiles, such as the Russian Kh-55, for example, fly thousands of kilometers. The Storm Shadows, which are a good 5 meters long and have an estimated unit price of more than 1 million euros, fly comparatively slow at a speed of Mach 0.8 to 0.95 and usually no higher than 30 to 40 meters to avoid enemy radar. So why are they being celebrated so much in Ukraine? With the delivery of the first HIMARS systems in late spring of 2022, the country's defense abilities changed drastically. The HIMARS allowed Ukraine to strike targets deep behind enemy lines, meaning they could not only hit enemy troops that they were engaged in battle with, but attack depots, supply lines, and command centers housing high-ranking Russian officers. The first rockets Ukraine received had a range of about 80 kilometers. In 2023, Kyiv received ground-launched small-diameter bombs for the HIMARS, which can fly up to 150 km. But all these advantages only made Ukraine want more. The thought, imagine all we can do if we extend our range even beyond what we have. The Storm Shadow represents just exactly this idea come true. Unlike for the ground-based HIMARS, Storm Shadow missiles are launched from a fighter jet. They have a higher range, a high payload, and are very precise. Also, the Storm Shadow has a bunker-busting two-stage warhead. Very simple terms, the so-called precursor charge blows a hole into whatever structure it's hitting. The so-called follow-through bomb goes into the hole and detonates inside. It's a bit surprising actually how good these missiles have come to use, since they were never built to be launched via Soviet-era jets. But evidently, Ukraine has found some technical adaptations allowing the Storm Shadow to be launched via Su-24 fighter jet. British Defense Minister Ben Wallace was gifted a photo with the missile attached to a Ukrainian plane. But weapons that hit precise targets need to be fed with precise data, collected from reconnaissance beforehand, but also precise data while launching. Whether we are talking about a ground-based system like the HIMARS or airborne missiles like the Storm Shadow, it's the same. This and the fact that the Storm Shadow should be more compatible with Western jets are two reasons why the arrival of these jets cannot happen soon enough. So, will the Storm Shadow act as an accelerator for the delivery of Western planes, and maybe even a door opener for further weaponry? Until now, the discussion of Western military aid to Ukraine has always followed the same pattern. Initial resistance, followed by hesitance, followed by some countries making the first step and setting precedents for the rest. It was like this with tanks, with their defense systems, with fighter jets. So, the delivery of the Storm Shadow might be just that for long-range missile systems. And there already is an ongoing debate in the USA and in Germany about the potential delivery of longer-range weaponry. For the USA, the ATACMS is a viable option, which would be giving Ukraine a range of over 300 kilometers with their HIMARS. Another option is the German-Swedish Taurus KAPD-350, which has been described as the Storm Shadow's evil twin, very similar in weight, size, shape, payload, and speed, but with a higher range. What's stopping them? A big underlying question, or let's say the reason for this hesitance, is the ability of these weapons to be used by Ukraine to hit targets on Russian soil. Basically a question of how far does the right to defend yourself go? That, of course, is a difficult question, as it has potential legal and actual consequences. Okay, at this point you could say, isn't the Russian invasion illegal? Are they not committing humanitarian crimes daily? The answer is yes, of course, they are. But that's not how Russia sees it. And if you look more carefully, they still try to find some legal justification for their so-called special operation, as well as avoid the consequences of calling it a full-scale war, which would include martial law in Russia maybe, full mobilization, and so on. Some Western politicians fear that attacking Russia on its own soil has the potential for provoking unseen consequences on a global level. The position of many Ukrainians is just fundamentally different. To be able to protect the country, its border, people, nature and animals, the army needs to do everything it can. And long-range missiles as well as F-16s or modern tanks are the only language Russia seems to understand. Anyway, that's it for Talking Tactics. We hope you enjoyed it. Please hit like and subscribe, and see you next week.